So 64 candidates competed for 5 positions, and after each round, 3 rounds, some percent of the candidates are dismissed. It's a consistent percentage from round to round. We just don't know what it is. We should, however, once we can solve for it, we can figure out the probability that a candidate will complete all 3 interviews but fail to get the job, as much as that would be unpleasant for that candidate. So, let's take a look at the statements. Statement 1 tells us that that percentage equals 25. So if 25 are getting dismissed, 64 minus 25% means 48 get past the first round. 48 minus an additional 25% means 36 get past the second round. 36 minus 25% equals 27 past the third round. And then so if we have 27 for the finals, which is 5 positions, 5 of the 27 get the job, and 22 out of the original 64 do not get the job at that point. And that's our probability that you would get through, or that the candidate would get through all 3 rounds and then still not get the job, which is actually still not awesome. That's about 1 in 3. So, job market is tough. Anyway, statement 1 is sufficient. We can figure out the probability, so we get rid of B, C, and E as answer choices. Statement 2 tells us that 12 candidates completed the first interview but were dismissed after the second interview. The key here is that we're dealing with the first and the second interview. We're not dealing with something much later, which would make it much more complicated. So, N is the number that don't make it after any given round, or that's the percentage that that disappears. But that specifically is going to be the percent that doesn't make it after the first round, which means that 1 minus n is the percentage that does make it to round 2. So imagine that each of these are not percents but decimals, like 0.37 is 37% or something like that. So if we take the 64 that we're starting with, and we know that some percent of them make it to round 2, so that's 1 minus n, which will be some decimal less than 1 but greater than 0, and we multiply that times the number that then don't make it to round 3, that's what equals 12. They completed the first interview, this part, but then were dismissed. They were in the going away part after the second interview, and that number equals 12. We'll end up with a quadratic equation because we're going to have an n times an n, so it'll be n squared. We'll end up with 2 values. N will equal 75. I mean, and you could just stop there and say, okay, look, I'm going to get 2 values, and probably one of them is going to be crazy. And sure enough, one of them is crazy. If you lose 75% of your candidates after 3 rounds, I don't think you actually have 5 left to even have enough for your positions. So statement 2 is also sufficient, and so it is answer choice D.